Hi guys, welcome back to Read Like a Man. My name is Paige Gordon, and on this channel I help you find books that equip and inspire you to live with more strength, courage, mastery, and honor. And in this video, I want to talk about the best books that I read in 2022. I had the privilege of being able to read about 152 books this past year, and I wanted to pick some of my absolute favorites from different categories and share those with you guys. Here we go. The first category that I had was the best novel that I read, and that most definitely goes to this book right here, Anna Karenina. This book absolutely wrecked me. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. It looks like a very girly book, and it is, on the surface, a book about a woman who ruins her life through adultery. And in the depths of it, it is about so much more than that. There is a cast of characters in here that feels so real. The way that people think in here, the thought processes that they go to make the justifications for the decisions that they make is just so accurate to what we do as humans. And this book is absolutely a beautiful story. It's huge. It's like 800 pages. If you've seen my video for 12 books that will make you a better man in 2024, I recommended this one as well. And I will never stop recommending it. It is one of my favorite novels of all time, and you should absolutely read this book. The next one that I had was the best economics book. I really enjoy finance and personal finance and have been getting into more kind of bigger picture economics books in the past year. And so my favorite for that category was most definitely the Fiat Standard by Saifadean Ammous. I recommended his other book, The Bitcoin Standard, in my Books to Make You a Better Man series. This book, I think I may have actually liked more than I liked The Bitcoin Standard. Saifadean does an amazing job in this book of not just ripping on everything that is right now and just saying, oh, this is terrible and we should just get away with it. He does a really good job of explaining this is why things happen this way. This is the benefits of the system that we have now. And this is how we've kind of outgrown and need to move past the system that we have now. So this is a fascinating read. And if you want to better understand pretty much everything that's going on in the world nowadays, this is the book to read. It's so good. Next, we have the best spiritual book that I read all year. And that one was incredibly difficult to choose. The one that kept coming to mind is this book, Embrace Your Almost by Jordan Lee Dooley. And it is not a book that I would have picked out for myself. It's quite pink and written by a lady who writes for ladies. And it's just not really one that I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get that. My wife found it for me and was like, wow, find clarity and contentment in the in-betweens, not quites, and unknowns. And she was like, wow, that seems very much like what we're going through. And I think you might like this. And she got it for me. And this book is just chock full of notes and dog ears and a million things. I loved this book so much. The biggest thing that I took away from this book was that the goal is to understand that it's not about getting where we're trying to get or where we think we need to get. The actual way to judge if you did it well or not was if you loved well along the way. Not if you reached your goal, not if you attained your dream, not if you did the thing that you were wanting to do. It's how well did you love along the way. And that idea just wrecked me. It changed my year. And this is a book that, looking at it again, I'm going, oh my gosh, I need to go back and read this book again because it is so good. And she writes with such honesty and such vulnerability. And it's one of those books that I'm super glad I ended up picking up. Next, we have the best classic that I read. I've been trying to get into the classics more, and I decided to pick up Plato's The Republic. I was honestly very terrified to go into this book. For some reason, I was thinking it was just gonna be like, I don't know, just like boring or super hard or like a lot of work, like a lot of drudgery to get through. And I started it and just about could not put it down. It was engrossing, the arguments and the line of thinking that Plato, Socrates, the character in the book, who is speaking, the way that he goes through and starts to break down all these arguments and build his arguments, it brought up such a clarity of thinking to me and a desire to think better and how I approach the discussions that I have with people, and trying to really dig into what is the root of what's happening and what are these statements that you're making, how do they connect together, and how does this one contradict this past one that you made, and how can I convince you either for or against your own argument using your own words. We must therefore put a stop to stories of this kind because they breed in our young men an undue tolerance of wickedness. That was one of the biggest things that stuck out for me from this book. He talks about how the stories that we consume either make us think that things that aren't okay really are okay, or they make us tolerant of wickedness or tolerant of weakness, or they make us accept things that shouldn't be accepted. And it just, this whole chapter, part 3, education, the first stage, this whole chapter just wrecked me with the things that have been going on with all the woke media and woke Disney and all these stories that are coming out, that I listen to these stories, or I see these stories that my kids are supposed to be enjoying. And I'm like, I hate this. This does not align with any of my values. This story teaches things that will not turn my children into good functioning adults. One of my notes in here literally says, "Screw woke Disney." And that was pretty much how I felt. This book just made me think so much more deeply about the things that I am consuming and the things that I'm letting my kids consume. Next is the most timely book. This is also the category for the book I would probably recommend to the most number of people, and I'm actually not even done with it yet. I'm in the middle of this one. This is A Letter to the American Church by Eric Metaxas. Metaxas is the man who wrote the biography on Bonhoeffer, and this book is essentially his wake-up call to the church of today, and saying how many parallels he sees to the church of the early 1930s during the Nazi rise to power in Germany, and how the German church, they missed their moment to step in the gap to stop the evil moving forward, and they were in the perfect place to do it. They were the only thing that could do it, and they missed their opportunity. And this is his book explaining how what he sees, that the American church of today is in the exact same position. One of the parts that I've underlined in here, he says, "Or to put it another way, people are in their churches singing more and more loudly to drown out the cries of those in the boxcars heading to their gruesome deaths. Sing with us," they say, "and don't worry about all of those other issues out there. They don't concern us. Our job is to focus on God and pretend that we can do so without fighting for those he loves, whose lives and futures are being destroyed." This book speaks so deeply to stuff that's been on my heart for a while, of this modern day approach to political issues and the cultural issues, and the church's response is we're just going to preach the gospel, and we're not going to get political, and we're not going to dig into these things. And I have just deep down always felt like that's not right. Like the gospel permeates every area of life. Like, being a Christian is supposed to change every area of your life. You can't just be like, oh no, we're gonna take a pass on this, you know? I have felt incredibly justified, incredibly worried, and just so many emotions reading this book. Of everything this year, this is the one that I would say is the most timely for our current day, and is the one that I would put in the hands of absolutely everyone if I could. Okay. The best personal finance book that I read. I read a ton of personal finance books. I picked up this one from a friend, Bob Lotich, who goes actually to the church that I go to, and it's called Simple Money, Rich Life. This is far and away the best personal finance book from a Christian perspective that I have ever read. He has such an incredible balance between the natural and the supernatural, and in between, this is the smart and wise thing to do, but God might call you to do something different. And if he does, you need to obey that. Like I say, I've read so many personal finance books. This is 100% in my top 3. It might honestly be my top 1 if I'm talking to someone who specifically wants a book from a Christian perspective. This is guaranteed to be my first recommendation. It is so good. Simple Money, Rich Life, Bob Lotich. Excellent book. The 7th one that we have is the best self-help. This is a dual entry, Beyond Order and 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. I cannot say enough good things about Jordan Peterson. He is one of the greatest thinkers alive in our day, and he is an incredible man who is working night and day to correct some of the imbalances in our culture, and to speak out against the injustices, and speak out against the craziness, to speak out against the insanity of our world. And he has authority to do it, and he has confidence to do it, and he inspires me in so many ways to make myself better, to make my thinking better, and to step up in my own manhood and in my own opinions and speak the truth as I understand it, being open to being corrected, but also not being afraid to correct others who are provably wrong. And that's so much of what he says is, like I've put in the time, I've done the work, I've done the research to come up with this position, and I'm open to my mind being changed, but you're gonna have to work hard for it. And that's so much of what I've tried to learn, the attitude I've tried to adopt is I have earned the opinions and the insights and the ideals that I have, and I'm open to change them, but not on a whim, not from some emotional doofusness argument just on whatever it is that your feelings tell you. I'm not doing that. So I love that. Everyone should read Jordan Peterson, hands down. What do we have next? The most insightful. This is kind of a dual one as well. So this is the Message Bible. And in combination with that is a book, which I don't have, but it's called A Burning in My Bones by Winn Collier. And it's the biography of Eugene Peterson, who is the author of The Message. I have spent my whole life believing that The Message was a hack, not even translation of the Bible. My opinion was that there was this random dude who read some English versions of the Bible and then decided to translate it into whatever he wanted it to say, and it was terrible and it was heresy. And in an effort to understand and read things that I don't agree with, I decided I wanted to read the biography, read that, was like, oh my gosh, this man is incredible, and was super interested then to read The Message. I got this Message Bible and I did a plan called the Bible Shred, which is reading the Bible in 30 days. And so I got that, I read the whole thing in 30 days and I loved it. It transformed my relationship with the Bible. It transformed and brought new life to my Bible reading. It was one of the best experiences reading the Bible I had ever had. And it inspired me after doing that to go and get I have a giant ESV study Bible. And this book, in kind of the most simplistic, isn't really the right word, but the most simplistic side of a Bible translation inspired me to go to the complete other end of the spectrum, a very word for word, trying to be very faithful to the original text and massive study Bible. I think everyone would benefit from something like that. What I found so often was there were so many passages that I would read and be like, wow, that was amazing. And then realize, oh my gosh, that's that passage that I know from the ESV version or from the NIV version or whatever, that when I read in those, I just gloss over it because I read it a gajillion times and I know exactly what it says. But in here, it was communicated just differently enough that it bypassed that little, okay, I'm going to fill in the blanks because I already know what this says. And it made me read it afresh. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience. So if you are on the fence about The Message, or you've never read it and you're just interested, I would highly recommend reading A Burning in My Bones to understand more about Eugene and how he created this version, how qualified he was to create this version, how he did not do it on his own just randomly, and he had people working with him and all these things. And then pick up The Message. It is wonderful, and your relationship with Jesus will be very benefited by reading both of those books. What else we got? The Best Feel Good. Joanna Gaines, The Stories We Tell. This is Joanna's new book. My wife and I just picked this up right when it came out because we are Magnolia addicts. I really loved this book. It is very unpretentious, I feel like is the best way to say it. Joe's heart comes across so well in this idea of, I'm sharing my story to inspire you to share your story. And I'm sharing my story because I'm at a point where I can kind of see how all the pieces are connecting together and how even the parts that don't really make sense were important and are important. You feel better about life and what's going on in your life from reading this book. I really, really loved it. One of my favorite things that she said was, we can't always recognize our formation as it's happening. And I was like, man, that's so true. Like, we look back on these times and we look back on the past year and we see like, oh my gosh, I grew in this and this and that and the other. But in the moment, in the day-to-day, so often we miss our formation and what we're becoming and who we're becoming because of what life is serving up to us. This book and the ideas behind it is part of the reason why I decided to start this channel. So let's see, the last three I don't have physical copies of, so we're just going to run through these off of here and I'll throw the covers on the side here. The 10th book that I have is The Appearance of Power by Tanner Guzy. I mentioned this in my 12 books to make you a better man. This book radically changed my life. every single day with how I dress and how I present myself as a man. Tanner is a masculine style guru, and he approaches the conversation of style and how masculinity is expressed through the clothing that you wear in a way that is unlike anything I've ever heard. Yeah, I've always been against style. Like, I don't care what I look like. I don't care what my clothes are, blah, blah, blah. And he just brings it so much into a frame of reference that I can understand how my clothing affects how I operate and how I am perceived as a man. And so this book is super short. It's like 120 pages, but it is well worth it. I would love to buy cases of it and just have them on hand to give out to guys. It is that good and that important. Number 11, the best kids book. I've been desperately trying to find some good series for my son. He is 8, almost 9. Trying to find some appropriate series for him that, again, teach the morals that I actually care about, because so many of these books we picked up, I step back and I look at them more critically and I'm like, these are not teaching the lessons that I want to be taught to my kids. They're not good. I started this series a couple of years ago and didn't end up getting through it, but it's called The Green Ember by S.D. Smith, and I loved it. These are books with rabbits with swords. They are about sacrifice and bravery and fighting for what's right and defending your family and standing up to evil. They have incredible character arcs. One of the main young rabbits, whose name is Pickett, you see him change from this fearful young boy into this soldier and this protector and this defender of everything that is right and good in the world. S.D. Smith is a Christian. There's tons of Christian overtones in these books, and they are wonderful. They're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I am planning on buying hard copies of them all, and I guarantee we will read through them multiple times with all of my children. Finally, this is my most fascinating category. This is a book called About Time. It's by David Rooney. I got into the study of horology in this past year. I was very much never understood the whole wristwatch thing. It always annoyed me. And I was actually watching an episode of a TV show, and it was all centered around the guy had lost his dad's watch, and it was such a huge deal. And I was like, I just don't understand. Like, I don't get this whole watch thing. And so I wanted to understand it a little bit more. So I started doing some research. Why do people care about watches? Why would people spend a bunch of money on watches? That led down this massive rabbit hole to understanding mechanical watches, understanding how they work and the things that go into making them. It led to buying my first mechanical watch. It's a Hamilton khaki field automatic, for anyone who cares, which is probably no one. I was like, I need to find a book on horology. This is so interesting to me now. And I found this book called About Time, and this is a history of civilization in 12 clocks. It is one of the most fascinating reads I have ever come across. The way that he weaves these stories of different points in history and how the timekeeping devices that we had at those points in history affected the whole world and changed the whole world. One of the most fascinating stories to me was how we were able to figure out longitude and change the entire course of history with how fast ships could sail across the sea by developing chronometers that could keep time out on the ships. Because in order to determine longitude, you have to know the local time of a set place and the local time where you are. And the reason we couldn't determine that was because we didn't have timekeeping devices that could handle all the nastiness and all this hard trauma on these ships. This whole story of how that watch came about and how that drastically changed the times that it took for ships to get places, and led to really the whole European takeover of the world during that time. Absolutely fascinating. This book, I got it from the library. I am 100% going to get my own copy of it and read it again, because I was just enthralled the whole time. It was my favorite kind of history book, of just this thing that you read that you just never think about. Nobody thinks about timekeeping. We just know that we can tell the time, and that's pretty much all we think about it. It just was fascinating, absolutely fascinating to me to learn more about the history of that, and even the future of timekeeping and what that looks like moving into the future. There you go. There's 12 books. I could go on and on. This video is already very long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it. But I hope that was interesting. I hope if you take the time and find some of these that are interesting and you pick them up, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you read. Let me know if you liked it or hated it. Hopefully you love it. But I would love to hear your thoughts. If you've read any of these, please tell me what you thought of them. And if you're looking for more stuff to watch, there'll be another video linked probably right here. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.